Welcome to Cape Works. My name is Terry Duenas, and we're here to discuss the business of business on Cape Cod. And we have a really an interesting topic today that you are going to be interested in. We have a wonderful panel with me today, and they're a group that I suppose loosely referred to as the Say No to Lowe's group. And we're talking about the business of Lowe's coming into Dennis, and with me to my left, Lynn Calangione. I've got it, and she's from Baskin's True Value on Route 134 here. And next to her is Ken Foster. He is the president of Hall Oil and Breakaway, again on Route 134. And to his left, John Lippman of Lippman Development Strategies. And it is wonderful to have you all here, and we're looking forward to spending a little bit of time talking about the concept about Lowe's coming into Dennis, just off of 134 in Dennis. And Ken, you've been a very vocal spokesman for the group. I don't know if you were elected spokesman, but you've been doing a great job, and certainly tell us, give us a little bit of background on this situation.
Sure, Terry. Literally about a year ago, we were finally became aware that an application for a Lowe's in South Dennis off of Theophilus Smith Road was in the works. I personally, plus a number of other businesses, received a phone call from Rob Chamberlain saying that was, in the works and moving forward. I wear a few hats, not only as a businessman on 134, but also as the president of the Old South Dennis Village Association.
Wonderful.
And our concerns, let me back up a little bit. In the Old South Dennis Village Association, we're trying to preserve the community character that we have. So I represent that group, which is approximately 150 homes in the old historic part of South Dennis. And as a businessman, I went out to Lynn at True Value, Mid-Cape Centers, Agway, just to name a few right off the top of my head, Hart Farm. And we started discussing what we could do jointly to fight this, because a lot of people felt it was a done deal, and we were out of luck.
Sure.
But we knew through the Cape Cod Commission that this would be the structure we'd have to go through, that we'd have the opportunity to present our side. So after really literally maybe 6 to 8 weeks, we had a group of 25 very concerned businesses, and by the time we put our group entirely together, we had 40 businesses, not just from Dennis, but all the way from P-Town to Osterville, and all concerned about this kind of development on the Cape. And then what we did was, through our group effort in raising funds, not only from the Old South Dennis Village Association, which people donated to specifically for this purpose, but through the business organization that we put together, we funded a economic study. We funded a traffic review, peer review.
That's important.
We had numerous meetings and so forth, and we have an attorney that represents us and works directly with the Cape Cod Commission. So in a short amount of time, we have a very viable, strong organization of 40 businesses. And we'll be addressing the issues today that have become the major issues that we're looking at.
So it's not a knee-jerk reaction by a couple of businesses that would be obviously impacted by this type of store. You have an organized, well thought out, and with a lot of research done, obviously.
Yes, this is called Local Business for a Strong Cape Economy. It's an LLC corporation. We're registered with the federal government. We have tax returns. We're into this very seriously, and we're a very cohesive group, all with a single direction. And it's also been an extremely rewarding experience having the opportunity to meet our competitors. And we already compete in many of these products. And
Absolutely.
This is another thing we'll be talking about today.
Sure. I mean, I think that's so great. And as we talked about, we're going to try to talk about the four big pillars that we're looking at, how it may impact us. But certainly community, the community feel, the community preservation, and that impact has got to be one of the largest, one of the most important components of this, correct?
Yes, you recognize the area where Liberty Hall is in South Dennis is one of the best preserved 18th century intersections in the country. And we were recognized for this a number of years ago as one of the 10 historic points in the country. And we've worked hard, the Old South Dennis Village Association, for these last 30 years to preserve what's there. And it's not an easy job because it's continuous traffic. Every year the traffic gets worse. There's very little we can do to mitigate that traffic situation. Sure. And this kind of development simply strains this community to the nth degree.
That may be and certainly community character. Traffic is has such negative impact on community character. When you look at something, that Liberty Hall little corner there, that little four-way is probably one that's going to be impacted most in that situation.
Interestingly, yes, and that's one of the areas they haven't even put into the review process.
Interesting. And it's
again,
only a half a mile away or a quarter mile away, correct?
That's right.
Beautiful.
That's right. It's right around the corner.
What are the other key negative points, or the key points that traffic impact may have before we move? Because we're going to certainly get Lynn and John in on this discussion too. But what are some of the key things about traffic?
Well, one of the opportunities I have living or working on Route 134, my window faces the highway, and so I'm there basically 50, 60 hours a week and see all the activity.
Sure.
On a Saturday, actually, I don't even go on Route 134 to get to my office. I go Old Main Street, up around through Ring Brothers and down to my office because the traffic is so bad with the transfer station, with people leaving for the holiday or leaving on their Saturday changeover, that it's already impacting the amount of business we do on a Saturday. And I'm hearing from other people, oh, don't go to 134. And that's what we used to say about 132.
Absolutely.
Okay? Avoid 132. We never went there. Well, 134 is just about there. So when you talk about traffic and the feeder roads, the back roads, we have to look at the people coming in from Yarmouth, from Howard, from West Dennis,
Sure.
Dennisport. Well, they don't have any options other than go down High Bank Road up to 134, Upper County to 134, or Route 28 to 134. And all you have to do is take a ride on a Saturday down 134 and head south, and you will see bumper-to-bumper traffic almost all the way down to Route 28. Now, we're talking about adding another 7,600, and this is the minimum, 7,600 trips per day on a Saturday. Wow. To a road that it's already a major issue. So you have not only the aggravation of trying to get someplace, but for the businesses on Route 134 already, people are avoiding us.
Sure.
Now you do this, and well, why go up there at all? You could get to Hyannis faster.
That's such a great point. It's interesting because with the transfer station, and if you add, for those of you that don't know, tell us where the proposed retail store Lowe's is going to be. Maybe I just thought about that.
Yeah, if you're driving down 134, say heading north towards the Mid-Cape Highway, right where the new Cumberland Farms has gone in, right between the mobile station and Cumberland Farms, is Theophilus Smith Road. You take a right down Theophilus Smith Road, and there's a flea market on the right-hand side. It's that area in there. There was a inflatable park there last year. They've moved to West Yarmouth. But now we still have the flea market, and that acreage on the right, pretty much everything that's cleared will become, or could become, a Lowe's superstore, a big box store, whatever you want to call it.
Absolutely. And that's the road to, that's the dump road.
Well, technically, yes. I mean, that is, and there's not much you can do to that road either. And out on 134, it's virtually pinned as far as availability to widen or anything.
Sure.
Between the mobile station and Cumberland Farms, there is no extra room.
Absolutely. So huge traffic
Major,
impact.
major
Huge traffic impact. Also, I think it's going to have to be, if there's that many cars, it's got to have some tremendous environmental impact. Any positive environmental impact that this might have? John, you're going to talk. I was going to go. I can't be.
Not that I can think of.
All right.
There certainly are impacts, a lot of non-point impacts from things like traffic and increased activity in any given area, because you're bringing in more people, more cars, more potential for something to leak. But that itself is not the only problem there. The Bass River watershed is already an impaired watershed. It is impaired primarily from nitrogen that flows out of septic systems. And septic systems, to make a point short, are just ways to marginally take care of wastewater, but it doesn't really treat it for any of the chemicals in it. And nitrogen is the one that has the greatest impact in these sort of saltwater or estuarine environments. When that nitrogen gets into a bay, it fertilizes the water, just like the fertilizer you put on your lawn, which is also nitrogen-based. And that fertilizer causes algae blooms. It chokes the water with algae. The algae sinks and dies, and it eats up the oxygen in the water. So what you wind up with is an area that used to be very clean with underwater grasses and so on is now choked with algae. It has very little oxygen. Fish can die, crabs can die, and so on. And we've seen that in this watershed.
And that Bass River area right there is so critical to Dennis and to that, and Dennis and Yarmouth and the entire Cape. Water quality is probably our number one issue, of course.
Right.
But this will incredibly negatively impact that.
Well, and the reason it will do that is because there's really nothing even being offered by the proponent of this project to clean up the water. They're going to put in a denitrifying septic system, which takes care of some of the nitrogen in their own flow.
Right.
But here is a $50 billion corporation that is going into a location, and they could very easily build a small-scale wastewater treatment plant. They could hook up neighbors, they could try to be a good neighbor, and they're clearly not doing that. Instead, what they've proposed is to pay the Cape Cod Commission $51,000 per year for an ongoing study, mitigation study. And that number itself is 1/7 of what the Cape Cod Commission is actually requiring, even if you are to do that in lieu of putting in wastewater treatment to try to clean up the watershed. So what we don't see here is somebody coming in with a very large development and even trying to be a good neighbor.
Unbelievable. I mean, it just seems like such a no-brainer, not only water quality, but I mean, if you want that many more cars there, do we have an idea of the square footage of the footprint that they're proposing?
Yeah.
And how many cars that is?
Sure, they're proposing to pave about 9 acres. About 3.5 acres will be the footprint of the building, and then the balance will be the parking lot. And I'd like
we need 9 more acres paved on Cape Cod.
Right. Well, I'd like to point out that right now the proponent's application cannot alleviate or mitigate all the additional traffic they're going to put on the roads. Either they will not or they cannot, given the given the geography and the area. So they're proposing to pay a fee instead, but that actually won't remedy the traffic problem. The residents and the businesses here will just have to deal with it. And that fee would go towards the use of something else.
Wow.
The same with the pollution problem. They will add additional nitrogen pollution to the Bass River watershed, and they're proposing to buy their way out of that by paying a fee. As John mentioned, they actually could put in a different system that would not only not add nitrogen, but would actually help take out nitrogen from itself and the surrounding businesses, and they certainly have the resources to do that,
Sure.
but they're not. So they're looking to pay their way out of a number of serious problems that the community and the residents here will be left dealing with. The taxpayers here will actually end up bearing the burden of cleaning the Bass River watershed, and will also bear the burden of that extra traffic. And
They're not even willing to throw money at the problem. They're throwing money so they don't have to deal with the problem.
Well, that's
Correct.
right. And unfortunately, depending on how the Cape Cod Commission decides on this project,
amazing.
they may or they may not accept that. And we're urging them not to accept that.
Just
Right.
as a footnote to that, the Cape Cod Commission is currently involved in a very large regional wastewater planning and solution project. It's called the 208 program. It's federal funding. Cape Cod Commission has, I believe, more than $3 million to do this. So here they are working on issues throughout the Cape to try to address the issue of wastewater that hasn't been properly treated, try to figure out how to put in treatment. So this really flies in the face of what the Cape Cod Commission is doing. And I think it's a real problem. And we're obviously hopeful that the Commission will recognize that inherent conflict or contradiction.
Well, from an environmental standpoint, there's not one issue that is talked about on the Cape that's more important than water quality. It's universal. So this, which has an obvious and a very sensitive area. I think the Bass River watershed area is very sensitive, correct? I mean, this is one that's
Absolutely.
really the most
Yeah.
one of the most endangered. I don't know if that's the
I think
correct
that's a
term.
very good word.
But
It is endangered.
It is just going to that impact could have really negative potential. The other thing too, and I loved the name of the organization that you have formed, is the last few words are economic benefit to Cape Cod. Well, because most of the time someone would say, "Oh, you're saying no to Lowe's." Well, obviously you're not pro business. You're not pro building the economy. You don't want economic development of this, and I have a feeling that that's not the case.
No, that's not the case at all, Terry. Our businesses, which the name of our group is Local Business for a Strong Cape Economy.
Strong Cape economy.
When we first got together, we were all wondering what impact it would have on us, but we all compete with each other every day, and we all believe in that. We understand that principle, and we have no problem with that. But when we started doing research about the impact of these types of businesses on local economies, we realized this was a larger economic issue for the Cape. So we commissioned an economic impact assessment that this specific project would have on the Cape economy to find out if it would negatively impact the economy or positively impact the economy. If it was going to negatively impact the economy, we felt like this was an important issue to bring to the public's attention. If it was going to have a positive impact on the economy, we couldn't really say much, because even though it might affect one of our individual businesses, if it was going to help grow the resource base on the Cape and grow the job base, what could we say? Unfortunately, the results of the study found that the project would have a net negative impact on the number of jobs on the Cape, on the amount of business circulating in the Cape economy, on household income on the Cape, and even on the Barnstable County net tax revenues. It would benefit the town of Dennis, but across the county wide, it would be negative. It would be negatively impacted. So once we found that out, we realized this is a real serious issue. And part of the issue, and proponents and people who are against the project both want job creation. We all want that. It's so important. But this will actually result in a net loss of jobs. And that's because we are on a peninsula. We're surrounded by water and 2 bridges. We're not going to attract new money here from outside the region to come spend. We have this fixed economy. Our demographics are rather fixed, even shrinking according to the last census. So this is not going to grow the economy. It's simply going to shift sales from existing businesses to Lowe's. And when it does that, it's also going to shift jobs from local businesses to Lowe's. And Lowe's employs less people for the same amount of sales than local businesses do. And The Economist did a survey and studied the wages that we offer and compared them to the wages that Lowe's in their own application says they're going to pay. And the local businesses currently pay between 19 and 46% more than Lowe's wages. This isn't even the benefits. The benefits is a whole other discussion.
That's an amazing
It's
number.
amazing. So if you have a very big business that comes in and says, year one, we're going to do minimum $35 million, and that's going to be shifted from local businesses to itself, you are going to have a loss of jobs because they hire fewer people. The jobs that they create are going to pay less. And a good portion of the money that is spent at Lowe's will get, unfortunately, siphoned off Cape to national headquarters, and it won't remain in the Cape economy to be recirculated.
I think that's huge.
So it's a big economic loss, and I think the Cape should know about it. And the Cape Cod Commission, it has economic development goals, both to have a balanced regional economy and also to generate income to the region. And unfortunately, this project doesn't do either. It negates both of those goals. So we don't think it's in the best interest of the Cape. And it's not just our businesses, but we buy insurance here. We use the locally owned trash services.
Sure.
We buy advertising and marketing support services, and we buy products locally. And Lowe's won't nearly do that to the extent that we do. So
Absolutely.
we bank locally. Anything spent there will probably sit in the bank, if it's lucky, one night before it leaves the Cape economy. So it's a big drain. And to those people who say, well, it's very self-serving of us, if this project was going to bring more jobs and grow this economy, even if it was going to put my family business out of business, I could not oppose it because it's good for the Cape, but it's not. And people just need to know that. They need to know
and that's
that.
where the proponents of the project will say, well, obviously, okay, Lynn, Baskins True Value, you may not sell as many screws and nuts and whatever. And David Melke at Dennis Equipment, he may not sell as many snow blowers, and you may not sell as many grills, but it's a situation that is going to be, that's just money that's siphoned off and evened out, and if it's jobs and the entire economy for the Cape, it's crazy for us to put the entire Cape economy in jeopardy with continuing to do this. It seems like a no-brainer from your side. And I said I was going to sit and be unbiased, but I mean, it's kind of obvious either.
Yeah.
And Lynn's, when she talks about, and I refer to it as collateral damage, the collateral damage that will be done to all of the businesses that support all the local businesses is tremendous. Okay, it's unfathomable to me what it will do, all the way. One of the other things I just want to mention was that they keep talking about $100,000 of revenue coming into the town. Well, that seems like such a tiny amount of money when we consider we'll probably have to have more police. There's two people, okay? Police cars and 2 policemen, there's your $100,000.
Sure.
Okay?
Oh, easily.
You'll have a decreasing tax value in the town of Dennis because of property values dropping. Okay, you'll have business value based sometimes on incomes and so forth, not paying the taxes that we currently pay because we don't have the income coming in, so they won't come back from the state back to the towns. So this $100,000 they keep throwing around is such a drop in the bucket, but they have so few things that they can actually hang their hat on that are positive, that they jump on that. And one other thing I want to go back to with traffic is I don't know how many people have the opportunity to use our, quote, clover leaf, that supposedly the best clover leaf on Cape Cod. Well, I call it a 3-leaf clover because it certainly is not a 4-leaf clover.
No.
If you've been in line, that's a single lane coming off and a single lane going on. That is not a good 4-leaf clover or clover leaf.
Sure.
The number of rear-end accidents, the number of accidents we're having at these intersections far surpass what the minimum requirements are. And they have the mitigation they're talking about is a few signs. And that's just what you need, is a few more signs to tell you what to do. Now, I will come off exit 9A coming south on 134, and every time I make that turn, I just hope that nobody's immediately
lane.
going into the right lane from coming over the bridge.
Sure.
You know, short of putting up Jersey barriers, I don't know how you're going to prevent that. Now, I want to go into Patriot Square. Okay, I got to pray again that I can make 3 lanes and make it before somebody, I rear end or somebody or whatever. Probably 50% of the time, I actually elect to go down to Theophilus Smith Road to take my left. I can't even make the left-hand turn
Sure.
there from the right side. I don't know if you ever drove in Hartford, Connecticut before they repaired the roads, but getting to the Cape, coming down 95 from north of Providence, you prayed when you went across 5 lanes of roads to get
That
to
you
the
could
Cape.
get there all the way
Maybe,
across.
maybe, yeah. And I just see this as, oh my God, here we go again. You know.
And I'm a
So-
much better driver now, the older I get.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Well, unfortunately for the proponent, the traffic piece of this project, right, is a huge obstacle for them. Right now, they don't meet 25 minimum performance standards that the commission has because of the traffic. And they're also just going to add more trips to high crash areas and intersections. And there's not a
absolutely.
lot of changes that can be made to those roads to make things better, given the layout of the roads and the businesses alongside them. So it's a very difficult hurdle. And you know, people have come to me and say, you know, well, what about us as consumers? Don't we have the right to have more choices and to have that option there? I'll go to Lowe's, sometimes I'll go to one of your businesses, and I understand that. That
Sure.
is the American way, and that's completely legitimate. Unfortunately, given our unique geography as a peninsula and a sensitive ecosystem and our seasonality, that in this case, this project comes with such huge detriments overall that they far outweigh the benefits to an individual consumer, that sometimes there's not a place for them everywhere, you know, across the nation.
Absolutely.
And this isn't one of them. This is one of those times where you have to put the needs of the greater community ahead of an individual consumer's needs. And for an individual person to a few times a year have that option to further pollute the Bass River watershed, to drain money from the whole Cape economy, to force residents in this area to have to deal with all that extra traffic on a daily basis.
Crazy.
It's not right. A consumer right now can go to Hyannis if they want to Home Depot. They can go online to Lowe's.com every day and order online.
Right.
And the several times a year that they want to shop at Lowe's, it's a 45-minute drive. But is that worth it to protect our Cape and our community? We really think so.
Definitely. We're just about out of time, but before we go, I would just want to say that, and John, you mentioned there's still time. It's not a done deal, and they can sign a petition. And during the whole program, we've have put up the www.notolowes.com where folks can go sign a petition online. What else can they do quickly?
Well, we've got another hearing coming up before the Cape Cod Commission. One of the things that I want to make clear very quickly is that the commission must rule on this first before anything goes to the town. And the commission can turn it down. The commission will have to turn it down if even one single minimum performance standard is not met. There is a second public hearing, and it is very, very important that people show up at it and make their voice known. We had a huge turnout at the first public hearing about 2 weeks ago. The public hearing is Tuesday night, July 30th. It is at the Wixon School in Dennis. It's, you head north on 134 from the highway. And people should show up at 5 o'clock if they want to speak. It'll probably be very crowded. Although the hearing is at 6, you can show up early and sign up and make your voice known and make your presence known. Very important thing to do. What the commission hears from us, from the people of Cape Cod, is going to have a profound effect on this decision and probably will shape what the commission decides. If the commission decides that this project is not appropriate for Cape Cod, it doesn't happen.
Fabulous. That'll have to be our last word. Say no to Lowe's. The hearing is this Tuesday, July 29th. If you're watching
30th.
this, July 30th, I'm sorry. If you're watching this after the fact, you can still go to the website. There's going to be a number of hearings with the Cape Cod Commission. The public may not have the input in that, but it's still not a done deal. Make your voice heard. Very important. Thank you for joining us on Cape Works. Thank you, folks.
Thanks,
I appreciate
Terry.
it very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.